Hi, I'm Susanna Cavanaugh. I'm a senior reporter at The Real Deal, and I'm going to take you through one of my recent stories, and that's a ranking of the top and worst buildings in New York according to New York City architects. So when I was reporting this, I was talking with Jonathan Marvel of Marvel Architects, and he said one of the hazards of the job is that people are always telling you what they hate about New York City buildings. So he said one of the common flops in people's minds are the white brick buildings that line the Upper West Side. He said people just think they're ugly. But architects have least favorites as well, and they have top picks. So let's start with Marvel. One of his favorites is the Ford Foundation building. He said it's just a really exemplary blending of the indoor with the outdoor. So when you walk in, it's a commercial space, but there's a 7-story atrium that doubles as a conservatory. And he said it's just an invitation for the public to come inside and enjoy the nature. One of his least favorites is Trump Tower. He said he doesn't like buildings that feel like they don't add anything to their environment. And Trump Tower is a building that really sucks the air out of the street, so to speak. Moving on to Chris Fogarty of Fogarty Finger. His pick for least favorite was a little more pragmatic. It's One High Line, that building that spirals as it goes up. He said he doesn't like buildings that twist for the sake of it because architecture, is a very practical pursuit. It makes sense to have bathrooms that stack on top of bathrooms. And he said the twist at One High Line, it just sort of feels like a one-liner. His favorite, by contrast, is a building that's very close to home. It's literally his home, and that's Butterfield House in the West Village. So this is a building built in the late 60s that really blends with its environment. It was celebrated by the city and the Landmark Commission for being this shining example of modern architecture that harmonizes with the brownstones that are already on the street. Fogarty said it tries to be a good neighbor. And then moving on to our last architect we chatted with, that's Paul Taylor of Stonehill Taylor. His least favorite pick, by contrast, is the Billionaire's Row Needle Towers. So I've heard this gripe a lot from people who live on Central Park West. Basically, you're looking across the park and there's these 3 huge towers on Billionaire's Row that totally obstruct your view. Taylor characterized them as weeds in the lawn of New York. So no love there. His favorite building, though, is the TWA Hotel in JFK Airport, and that's the redesign of the Howard Hughes World Trans Airlines terminal. So he loves this because it's an example of adaptive reuse, which is something that, we've seen in cities everywhere, but it can only be accomplished in a city that has these historic buildings. Otherwise, you're not able to redesign. And he sees it as this really, it's almost like a love letter to, a preservation of the history of New York, but also a celebration of progress.